if we think about fusion, it almost feels like there should be a collective version of us that we need to achieve by fusing together and become that person. But honestly, we don't even know what that looks like. Hey all and everybody, thanks for switching into Housemates for Life, a podcast powered by plurals for plurals and everybody else who wants to hear more about the insanely awesome world of plurality. Here we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful sides of sharing a body and mind. In this episode, we discuss a rather controversial topic in the plural and DID community, which is integration, or sometimes termed fusion, and nobody really has a clear definition of these terms, so we will discuss a bit what they mean to many different people, what is actually so controversial about fusion, and we will give our own take on integration, what it actually means to us, and how we handle it, and how we achieve it. We are the voices of just a rather very insane system, aka Jarvis, and I am your host, Matt. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, Housemates for Life, please tell a friend or more and leave a like, subscribe, rate, comment, and everything else you do to show your support and appreciation. Many thanks. Now, without further ado, let's start our show. So today's episode is a little bit improvised because we actually planned to talk about something else, but then this topic came up about integration and it's more fresh on our mind currently, so we feel like we should talk about it right now with all the passion and emotions. Usually we have a very elaborate script for our episodes. Not really, but we have usually thought a bit more about what we're going to talk about, and this one, this morning, doing a workout session, I just had some ideas, or we had some ideas. Well, there were ideas in our head, and I just jotted down a few notes, and I'm just going to record, see what happens. So this is Matt, and I am mostly by myself, or very much by myself at front today, for almost the whole day so far. So I'm just going to record this by myself, or we will see. Maybe somebody's switching in later or has something to say afterwards and we will edit it in or something like that. Not sure. So we're going to talk about integration and or fusion, because as far as we understand, they're not quite the same thing, so sometimes some people might use them interchangeably, but from our understanding, it's not really the same. Integration is not really the same as fusion. And I should give a disclaimer here. We are not medical advisors, psychotherapeutic professionals, or anything like that. So everything we talk about here is based on our own experience, which includes talking to many other plurals and people who have been diagnosed with DID and how they understand and think about integration or fusion. So a couple of decades ago, when research on DID was, when I talk about DID, I mean dissociative identity disorder, for many or anyone who are listening and doesn't know what I'm babbling about here. So the standard treatment for DID back then usually was what was called integration, which we would now rather term as fusion, so meaning that your whole collective system of multiple identities fuse together into one single identity. How that may look like and how systems may achieve that is probably extremely individual. It totally depends on how your system is structured and how you individually work together. But yeah, that was commonly thought as the prime treatment, or even seen as the only treatment for dissociative identity disorders. So that's what we would call fusion, which sometimes is called integration, but integration is more like, as far as we understand it, is more like learning cooperation, integrating Housemates into your daily life, communicating with each other, learning to communicate. So basically, integration is more associated these days, more associated with learning to live healthy multiplicity. So instead of fusing together and continue living as a singular being, DID systems or any other plural systems may learn to cooperate among themselves and live a healthy life as a collective system. And then there's partial fusion, of course. So, and this is so individual for every system. So you can have fusions only between a few system members, and they might not even be forever. You can have temporarily fusions. We would call these temporarily fusions. We could call them blends. So, me, Matt, and my headmate we blend a lot together these days, at least, because we are often at front together. We co-front a lot. We're co-conscious a lot. And the lines become blurry occasionally, or actually very often. And then we feel like, we just mushed together, blended together. We're influencing each other so much that we can't really tell who's actually doing what or saying what, and feels like, we're overlapping. Our personalities and our wants and needs overlap a lot, and then we can't distinguish each other's identities anymore. So we feel like we're blended, which some system may mean the same but call it a fusion. But that's just some plural terminology, and with all the plural terminology, it's there are lots of words and a lot of meanings and lots of people interpreting both of them, and it's a lot. It's a mess. So why is fusion or integration, whatever you call it, why is that so controversial? Well, first of all, fusion, as it's been presented decades ago as the one and only treatment for DID, that is extremely singular normative, singular centric thinking. It kind of implies that being multiple, being plural, is inherently broken, needs to be treated, and the only treatment would be fusing the multiple identities together to one singular identity, meaning that fusion as the go-to treatment implies that being one singular identity is the quote-unquote norm, or is the healthy or repaired or fixed state of mind, consciousness, whatsoever. Which we all hopefully agree on that this is just bullshit. I mean, if you want to start fusion, or if you have been doing fusion, or if that's your goal for treatment or therapy, whatsoever, that's absolutely fine. Absolutely okay. Like, whatever works for anyone and anybody, that's absolutely okay. It's just when singular people come at you, singular people, especially singular people in a position of power, as they are clinicians or other so-called experts, they come at you and tell you that's the way to go. that's the only healthy way possible, then that's just bullshit. Okay. So yeah, I'm glad that we are a few steps ahead by now. It's 2023 now, recording this, summer 2023. And most people, not just plurals, but also clinicians, have learned a lot in the past decades. And most people nowadays agree that fusion is not the only way to go. It's not the only way to live healthy and happily as a system. So nowadays, a more common treatment, or not everybody needs treatment, as not everybody feels disordered, but let's say a way of self-improvement would be learning to cooperate among yourselves, communicating, cooperating, which ultimately we would call that then integration. The modern plural integration would be learning to work together as multiple individuals and live a single life, but as multiple identities. I hope I made that point clear. So we personally, we would not opt in for fusion because, well, for one, we are, each one of us, we are individual people. We are, I think we made that clear before in episodes before, but we are not parts of one person. So if we think about fusion as a treatment, it almost feels like there should be a collective version of us that we need to achieve by fusing together and become that person. But honestly, we don't even know what that looks like. Like, it's so bizarre because actually all the time we thought we are this one confused, chaotic person. But now, since we have known our system for over a year now, it feels so strange and distant to think about our quote-unquote self in that way. So yeah, it feels disturbing. It feels like if I think about fusion, it would feel like it's probably not like that, but it almost feels like I need to give up my life to become that merged other person. And that feels strange. Like, I don't want to stop existing. I just want to be myself. And my headmates think exactly the same about this. I'm not sure if all of us think like that. But yeah, that's like this one thing that it's a no-go for us. It's like we don't want to stop exist as we are existing. We just want to make our existence as it is a little bit better, as much as we can. And yeah, and another thing is why we would resist to fuse is that I think in many, not in many, but in some, or I don't know, often we hear from systems that they have some sort of quote-unquote original headmate, or a member in the system that identifies with the body, who feel like they are the main person, even though they don't necessarily need to front mainly. But often there is a person that has parts split off from them, and then maybe it feels more natural to think about fusing those parts together or integrating those parts in this quote-unquote original. It doesn't have to be like that, but it's just how we imagine where fusion might be of advantages or has advantages. But yeah, it's not for us, and yeah, it's controversial, but It's not actually, I guess. I mean, nowadays not everybody. I should just stop talking, I guess. I don't know where I'm going with this. Not sure if there's anything more I wanted to say about this. If you who are listening have any more points on the topic of fusion integration and the controversy coming along, just please let us know in the comments. And I will just move on to the next part of this episode. So I've mentioned this before. So our take on integration, so not talking about fusion right now, but talking about what we would call integration, is that being co-conscious, being aware of your system, that I guess is the very first step of integrating or feeling more integrated. So for example, Matt, nowadays, since I know that my system exists, my Housemates are there, and I got to know them a bit better, I communicated with them, I learned who they are, what their wants and needs are. Now that I know all about this, I can respect their feelings and their needs into my choices. So if I'm out alone at front right now, for example, today, I've been fronting since the morning. I woke up in this body, and that usually happens only if we are very, very, very rested, or the opposite, if we are extremely exhausted and everybody's too tired to wake up. So I'm like, hey, last resort is here. So, and yeah, looking back at this week, I guess it's the latter. So I guess our system is very exhausted right now. So that's why I'm fronting mostly today. And yeah, I think I mentioned this before in a different episode, but yeah, I feel very energetic. But since I know we're a system, I'm not alone in this body, I can take into account my other Housemates, their feelings and their mental states, and integrate that into my current emotional state and situation. So I can base my choices that I make not only on my own emotional state, but also my Housemates. That feels like I integrate my Housemates into my current state. I don't know how to explain that. Yeah, and by communicating with each other, there comes the next step would be cooperating with each other, defining common ground, and following common goals together. So we're not all just running into each direction individually, but we try to bundle our desires, our goals into a more coherent path for this one life that we have, that we share. Which, of course, it all depends from system to system. So this is just our take. This is how we figure is the easiest or most desirable way of living as multiple people, is trying to find overlaps and common grounds to formulate common goals and follow those, instead of just having this random chaotic stuff that's always going on in our head. But yeah, some other systems may choose a different approach and can live healthily and happily as multiple people with more individual paths in their lives. So, but what really made us thinking about the term integration started only quite recently. Like before, we didn't really give it much thought because we thought, oh, integration means fusion, and we are like, nope, fusion is not our, not how we want to live. But instead, we realized what integration really means to us is actually being able to share perspectives and feelings and emotions with each other, and maybe also skills. For us, not so much, because we all, like memory, we also kind of share a collective skill base in a way. But when it comes to emotions, that's where our barriers become high between each other. So sharing our perspectives, our viewpoints, and our emotional response, reactions, and just our emotions in general. So with that, we can achieve a wider range of emotions for everyone individually in our system. So we're integrating every member's emotions into other members' individual ranges. Oh geez, I don't know if I make sense actually. So basically, integration means not that we collectively become one whole person, but actually each of us individually becomes more whole in themselves. So we're not just parts, right? We're not just parts of one person. We're not just these emotional parts, like, the angry one or the happy one, the depressed one, whatever. That's not how it works for us. So we all individually can have our good and bad days. We all have a certain range of emotions. But to be honest here, that's at least how we experience that. Especially, I guess, because we are also an OSDD system, so we don't experience amnesia barrier. We are more, let's say, quote unquote, naturally co-conscious than maybe a system where there are amnesia barriers between each individual headmate. So we feel a lot more mushed together, blurred together, fused together. And because of that, I guess it's easier for each of us to always be able to front. Well, it's not really how it works for us. I don't know how to explain this. Okay, let's start again. There is situation A, and all our lives, headmate A comes out to the front in situation A. And then there's situation B, and every time we are in situation B, headmate B comes out to the front and handles situation B. And that's like usually how we used to live. And that makes you very well adapted for certain situations, or my situations that I automatically that trigger me, or that draw me out to the front. In those situations, I have a lot of practice, right? Me, Matt. Like, for example, now I'm doing this podcast. I'm practicing podcast. I have been out often in situations which require us to speak publicly in front of an audience. So that's something I'm familiar with. I'm not an expert yet, but I'm familiar with the situation and I don't mind. Whereas other headmates might feel, whoopsie. Yeah, speaking of experts, I'm just kicking around stuff here. So my other headmates might feel unfamiliar in these situations. They might feel uncomfortable, or it's new to them, or whatever. So I get a bit better adapted to these kind of situations compared to my headmates. But also, since I'm basically not living a whole life just by myself, there are certain situations that I have personally never been in. Maybe I had for me to think about a situation right now that I haven't experienced yet. But you get the gist, right? Yeah, you know what I mean. So in certain situations, I'm usually out of front and handle stuff. In other situations, my headmates are out and handle stuff. So we all have kind of our expertise in life. And so even though we are all fully developed people, well, not all of us, but most of us, at least our main fronters, we all feel like fully developed people. We're not just some personality quirk, but still, due to our situation that we share one single lifetime, makes us very rather narrowed in our expertise, and we have a rather narrow range of emotions that we have easier access to. So, for example, for me, it's easier to access high body energy, whereas other headmates might not get to that point. And I'm generally more optimistic, and it's hard for me to feel or see my rather negative emotions that I have. They are rare, but they are there. And so this is like for all of us, it's very different. So we have all very specialized range of emotions. And now coming back to the point that I was actually trying to make in the beginning is that integration means that we broaden our range of emotion, our individual ranges of emotion. So as a collective, we have quite a wide range of emotions, right? It's just that our individual subjective experience is a bit different, feels way more narrow than it might seem from the outside. And so by integrating each other's emotions into our own individual, if that makes sense. In the next part, in the next part of this episode, right now, I'm going to tell you how we can actually achieve this. So maybe this will make a bit more sense then. So, hear you in a bit. Alright, so integration, and how do we achieve this? Or how maybe you can learn one or few things from our experiences. Yeah, I mentioned this before. Very essential for this is communication and cooperation. So, first of all, you need to have some means to communicate with each other, be it communicating directly in Headspace or via notes in the physical world. And it's essential that you are cooperating, that you are on the same page, that you all have the same intentions, or not all of you. Like, you can also work on your personal integrations with just a few of you. Maybe you have a little group that gets along better, or is more tighter knit together. So you can start small. If your communication doesn't work with your whole system, just start with part of your system. And then maybe if someone in your system is refusing to cooperate, but you are cooperating with someone else in your system, and they see, oh, this actually works, or this is actually beneficial, and so you might motivate others in your system to start cooperating together with you. That's at least how we experience it. So a lot of us have been more or less indifferent about system stuff, but after a while, they make themselves noticeable. They want to be heard, and even though they don't know it yet, they come up and say, "Hey, I would like to join this party here, whatever is going on." And then, yeah, your cooperating system grows and grows and grows, I guess. Yeah, and once you have established some sort of communication and cooperation among others in your system, you can start teaching each other. We often feel like whatever we hear on the outside advice, this and that, it's never as good, or it's never as fitting to our own experience as the advice that we get from each other. So we know each other quite well by now, not all of us, but most of us. So we have all access, but that's our little advantage. We have all access to the same memories, so we know each other's lives. So we know we can give each other's advice just like we would give advice out to other people outside. And you need to be willing to accept advice. I guess this goes hand in hand with being cooperative, also allowing other headmates giving out advice to you. That's not always easy, and also not always necessary. So you don't have to take every advice from your headmates. Respect boundaries. If a headmate doesn't want to take your advice, or is very firm in their beliefs, which may be completely opposite to yours, then that's okay. Respect their boundaries if they have them. And yeah, one thing we try to do to learn to like kind of step out of our comfort zones, right? I talked before that we have a rather narrow individual experience because we usually front in certain situations. But now what if we quote unquote force ourselves to front in situations that we usually wouldn't front, given that it's safe for us or possible for us? It's not always easy. But like, yeah, for example, this podcast, my headmate Will is usually not out up front when we do public speaking, but so recording this podcast is more or less new for him. But yeah, he practices, and I think he starts enjoying it, at least sometimes. I know you do. I know you enjoy it. Or like also when it comes to social situations, I would usually overtake the front in social situations back then, before we knew about our system. It's just an automated process, and even today it's sometimes hard to hold back. But yeah, we practice that Will is gonna front, also keep hold on the steering wheel while being in social situations, which is really not easy because he's very quiet. And if he's like, yeah, I'm not going to say anything, and I'm just there co-conscious, and I'm like, I'm just starting talking. I just talk over him, over his silence, because I can't stand silence. So I always feel the urge to fill silence. So I just do it. I just talk when nobody else is talking. But yeah, we practice that when Will's at front and he wants to front and he wants to be in that situation, he tries to suppress me. He tries to keep these urges to talk down, which is not always easy. It depends on how many spoons we have. So if energy is low, then yeah, suppressing me can be hard. And the one thing that we are doing currently, which kind of inspired us or motivated us to record this episode today, is that we try to share emotions or integrate each other's emotions in others. Okay, here's the part again that is so difficult to explain. Let me give you an example. So, the last whole decade, we have been suppressing anger a lot. It's not like we never get angry, but we always tried our best to suppress any kind of outward anger expressions, which is not always possible, but we tried our hardest. So nowadays it's very difficult for us to naturally express anger unless the how do you say in English? I don't know, unless shit hits the fan and all leashes break loose, then anger just pours out of us. And that's not desirable, neither for us nor other people. So, So especially Will wanted to learn, because Will feel a lot of anger inside, but it's so hard for him to express that outside. And so he wanted to learn to do that better. So we have this headmate, which hasn't been on this podcast yet. Can I tell her name? Let me quickly call up my headmate. 1 second, please. Yeah. I can do that, right? Okay, cool. Thank you. Bye-bye. So I just talked to my headmate. I mean, not really. I mean, that's not how we talk to each other. But yeah, our headmate Jen is back in the days, we would call her the quote-unquote angry part. And yeah, she hasn't been around a lot in the past decade. Well, guess what? Because we suppressed her a lot without actually knowing it. But yeah, we start to integrate her back into our life, and is now still not a main fronter, but fronts more often and is more integrated in our main team. I don't know, our HQ. And she has a great attitude towards anger. She enjoys it. She loves it in a healthy way. So, anger itself is not bad, right? There's a difference between anger and aggression. If you're aggressive towards other people, that's not cool. But anger itself can actually be very energizing. It's not really my personal preferred source of energy, but it is a source of energy, and she knows that, and she uses that. And when she fronts, when there's anger floating around inside, and she fronts, she likes it. She feels good, she feels comfortable. It's not distressing her, compared to Will, for example. He feels uncomfortable with all these anger swelling up inside us. So basically what holds him back from expressing anger is his own discomfort with this emotion. Whereas when Jan is at front, she just lets go. She has no what's it called? Dang it. Why is it so hard to speak English today? She has no filter. That's what I wanted to say. She just breaks loose and she just talks before thinking, whereas Will's more like think before talk. And like welcoming her into our more active life more often at front, and actually experiencing anger through her has helped us, the others, understand that anger is not a bad emotion, or it doesn't have to be inherently uncomfortable. And so nowadays, Will also starts to feel more and more comfortable with that anger. So that's what we would call integrating our emotions. Learn sharing between each other how emotions can feel. Like we all have this expertise in a range of emotions, and we share that expertise with each other, and so we can broaden each individual range of emotions, and we can all become, with a wider range of emotions, we as individuals, we become more whole in our individual selves. Another example is me, Matt. So I struggle to feel negative emotions, as you can tell, I don't know. Which sometimes is disturbing, especially knowing that, well, we have often a lot of negative emotions, either specific to certain headmates, or these emotions just linger in our body. They don't really belong to anyone specifically, but they are there. Like we can feel them in the body, in the mind. And I'm just there, and I'm like, I look at these emotions, I'm like, yeah, what's that? I mean, I'm feeling great. Why do I have the urge to cry right now? And I don't understand. It's weird. It's confusing, and yeah, it's bizarre because, well, I'm this human, right? Or I'm in this human. I'm part of this human, and I don't know. Plurality is confusing if we haven't mentioned that yet. So I'm basically trying to learn to feel those emotions as part of myself, in a way. And how am I doing that? It's kind of like a fake it till you make it thing. So if I feel like, oh, there are some big feelings swelling up inside, I'm like, okay, I may just pretend that I'm sad right now. And try to imagine how would that feel for me, or what could I be sad about right now. And then at some point it just the emotions just sweep over to me. I don't know how to explain that, but yeah, then the more I try, the more I pretend to feel these emotions, the more I start to actually feel these emotions. I still don't feel them that intensely, or I kind of relate to them differently than my headmates, but I also feel like I get to feel emotions that I usually don't feel, and I kind of get to broaden my horizon in a way. So that feels like, again, integrating the emotions that we have around collectively. I integrate those emotions in my own individual personal emotional state, so to speak. So to put that in a nutshell, so instead of seeing ourselves as these parts who would need to fuse into one single collective being, it's more like we share between each other whatever we have in our system, and so each one of us individually becomes more whole, and we individually become more than we would be if we were, quote unquote, just parts of one single being. Because we as a system, we are more than the sum of our parts, and integration helps us to draw out the best of our qualities and even extend those qualities and broaden each of our individual horizons and our collective horizon whatsoever. And that's it. That's all we had to say about integration fusion for today. We talked a bit about the terminology around integration versus fusion, and also discussed a bit what makes fusion so controversial within the community, especially in the clinical community. And I shared with you a bit about how we personally as a system interpret integration, what it means to us, and with some examples explain to you how we can achieve integration. And now it's your turn. What does integration mean to you all as a individual or as a whole collective? And how can you achieve this? What are your tips and tricks about integration and or fusion? Let us know in the comments. This episode was brought to you by the Voices of Jarvis, with me, Matt, as your host, all alone today. Sop. Thank you all beautiful souls for listening and your support. It is very appreciated. If you like our podcast and you think this episode brought a bit of value to your life, please support us. Leave a like, a comment, rate, subscribe, whatever, so other people will have an easier time to find this episode as well. Many thanks. And as I always like to say, let your personality shine brighter than your eyes and your confidence shout louder than your voice. Until next time with Housemates for Life. And at the end, have some outtakes for your chuckle muscle. Let's go! Wait, that was good. That was better. Hello there. Hi. Ah. Oh gosh. Okay, intro time, I guess. Let me prepare mentally, physically, however. Hey all and every many! I think that was way too loud. We all become more whole as individuals, and we all become more than we would be as parts of one single being. So, wait, let me try to do that again. It sounded good, but not perfect.